So thank you for joining us this afternoon. Welcome aboard. Thanks for taking time out to join our webinar. Today we'll be looking at some meeting room solutions, from really straightforward point-to-point options to slightly more advanced systems, and we'll go through those step by step. The session, we'll keep it within 1 hour. Any questions during the session, please feel free to use the chat function within Zoom. And usually Kev will go through those very nicely of him and answer any questions. Anything else as well, he sometimes will just answer out loud to share with the group. And if we've got time at the end, we'll do a little question and answer session as well. So let's get going. So my name's Dan. I'm Key Account Manager for UK and Europe. And we've got Kevin Cray with us, our Technical Product Development Director.
Well done.
All 4 of those words, yeah. Thank you, Kev.
Yeah. I'm not sure what order they come in either, to be honest.
As long as they're all in there, I'm
I
pleased.
I look at my business card and go, which way around is it?
That's it. That's good. They all sound good. They all sound good. Right, let's have a look. So if you're not familiar with CYP, then of course we're known mostly for signal management and signal distribution, and that covers a range, as you see on screen here, of AV over IP products, HDMI and HD-based T matrices, extender kits, audio products, switches, converters, signal management tools, and HDMI cabling. And they can be used across a range of applications and industries. To be honest, most of the product categories we show on there can play a part in meeting rooms. Yeah. So there's so many, yeah, exactly. There's so many of our products that can find their way into meeting rooms. But we'll try and show some typical examples as we go through. So what makes for a good meeting room? In our opinion, in CYP's opinion, it includes some of these important points below. So, of course, high quality video and audio. You need to have a good quality picture, good quality sound within that meeting room space. Reliability. So again, we always design our products to be as reliable as possible. You can just use that room whenever you need it and the system will work reliably. Features suitable to meet current market trends. So this includes things like making sure that we have a range of products that include the latest inputs and outputs. So if the market changes which sort of inputs it's using, which type of connectivity, we like to make sure that we're at the front of getting those products to market. And simple operation for the end user. Of course, that's a key thing. If it's a meeting room space, it's likely that third-party people external to the meeting room might be using that space and need it to work simply. Let's have a look at a really straightforward example first. We'll start from simple solutions and work our way up to slightly more advanced systems as we go. So this is a brand new product to our range, which is actually, I think, due in within the next few days, Kev, isn't it? It's on its way very soon.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, it literally should be due in this week, but we've already got some pre-orders for it, so I'm not sure how many are left available because it was only a pilot run. Yeah.
But so this basically is a tabletop design, which we'll look at in a second, and it's an HDMI solution. So it's HDMI in and out, obviously making it cost effective compared to some other solutions. So this is the unit itself. You can see there a really tidy, really discreet tabletop box. You can probably get a size of the scale, like a gauge of the scale from those HDMI inputs. It's quite discreet, quite compact. And that's then HDMI in and HDMI out. So 3 HDMI inputs with auto switching. There is also here an input select. So if you've got a couple of HDMI connected already, you can just switch between those inputs manually using the input select button.
Or you can just pull the inputs in and out and it will switch to the live input if it's on auto.
Fair play. Yeah, fantastic. And on the right there, you'll see a basic diagram setup, of course, of this.
So at the back there, you've got the HDMI output on the right, and then the little circular one is a little mini jack for RS-232 control. So if you wish to integrate it into a wider control system, you can. And then the one on the left is the power.
Fantastic. Superb. Oh, sorry, I'll just admit one more person to the chat. There we go. Oh, 1 second. Sorry, just got a couple of people joining. I'm just going to quickly let people into the event. There we go. Super. There we go. So yeah, as Kev said, that's the arrangement on the back of the unit. We've specifically designed this to work with our AOC, our active optical cables. You can see a picture of one on the right hand side there. If you've seen these at shows like ISE, or if you've ever ordered these, if you're one of our distributors, or if you've purchased one of these from one of our distribution partners, they are incredibly small. The HDMI head for this active optical cable is incredibly small. And you will see there from the bottom end of the cable, it is a single cast head. So there's no separate join. Normally an HDMI cable's got that join on the background here, but it is a single cast unit. Have you got one there, Kev, for demo?
Yeah, I still can't find my bit of pipe. So I've got this little tiny bit of thing, you know, like you put in a wall, like a little plastic tubing that you may drop like electrical cable in. I had this little piece I had from when I was doing some building work here, and I've tidied my office and I can't find it. But the point being is that the heads are really, really small. You know, I am not Donald Trump. I've got massive hands. It's tiny, tiny. And so they drop through really small conduit. So if you need to pull it through, thing to remember with these, they are directional, because obviously you've got a fiber driver and a fiber receiver. So you need to make sure that you use the right end. As you see from the main picture there, that one's marked TV. So it's marked TV and source. You need to make sure it's the right way around. But yeah, they're beautifully made, cast, not folded. So they're very, very accurate. And the size of the head is incredibly small, considering you've got the fiber driver inside there. Both the source and TV end are the same size. Really, really excellent cable. I tested lots of these over the years and always rejected them because I found something I didn't like about them, whether they had power and the power connection was just a little jack that goes in, which is obviously not going to be stable and it's going to fall out, or where they were unpowered, they were drawing too many amps, and so they didn't work successfully with some sources. But this one, not only is the physical design absolutely superb, but the performance absolutely superb as well. So we do these in 10 and 20 meters. So very perfect for this product if you just want to run it, a 10-meter one up to a display, or a 20-meter one because you want to go up to a projector. They're really, really super good.
Exactly right. And the actual cable itself is incredibly strong and flexible. So if you need to retrofit it, again, it's very easy. The cable is so thin, it's easy to run around the edge of a room, for example.
The bend radius is also very good for a fiber cable. I mean, you know, you kind of got a load of, you know, you can get it quite tight round before you're even going to think about damaging the cable. Now, I've had this cable for a couple of years now, and it's just been thrown in bags, taken to shows, taken to my home, taken back again, wheeled over by my children on their bicycles. You know, it's just incredible, and it still works. It's quite incredible. You know, I've been bending it all over the place, and you know, and it still works perfectly well. They're really, really robust.
If they're childproof, they definitely must be. So good advocation for it. So yeah, that's basically, as I say, been designed to work with that 10 or 20 meters, really straightforward meeting room solution with auto switching, HDMI in, HDMI out. Really simple to use and relatively cost effective. Then we move on to other products in our range, and a lot of them then include HD-based T technology. We're all probably familiar with that, but of course, HD-based T over one cable will give us audio and video, control, depending on the model, can give you Ethernet as well, or LAN serving, power over cable or POH, and some of the models would include USB data transfer as well for things like KVM for keyboard and mouse and such like.
Generally speaking, HD-based T needs to be HD-based T2 for USB, but we're working on getting, admittedly it's a lower bandwidth transfer than HD-based T2, but we're working on getting HD-based T1 to work with USB. So this will be a lower data rate than you get with HD-based T2, but still perfect for keyboard and mouse, interactive screens and projectors. So we're working on a sort of system to get that working with that, which I'm hoping in the fourth quarter this year will be released. It will be a couple of different varieties of wall plate transmitters with an individual controller box that goes with it, and all with the USB, and then a receiver that's got an amplifier and the USB-B output, mainly for interactive touchscreens and the like as well. So watch out for that one in the coming months.
Super. Yeah, it's really going to lend itself to sort of classrooms and that sort of thing,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah, definitely. So let's move on. We will quickly just mention this. So of course, if you are installing cat cable for HD-based-T, I'll just bring up on here. Realistically, the market, not just us, but also HD-based-T as well, Cat5, older Cat5 cable would not be recommended for a new HD-based-T system. But if there is Cat5 cabling on site, obviously feel free to test it, maybe with a point-to-point kit, and see if it can handle the data you're trying to put through it. But if you were looking for a new installation, including meeting rooms like we're talking about today, the minimum cabling recommended would be Cat5e, and then of course above that you've got Cat6 and Cat6a. So do just bear in mind the cabling, of course, is very important to any HD-based-T system.
Absolutely, it is incredibly common that in an HD-based-T system, with someone's put unshielded, low grade, let's just use Cat5 as an example, but it can happen even with Cat5e, and you have system problems, you know, and the system just breaks down because either you're not got the bandwidth and you're trying to go the maximum distance and you've got like a 100 megahertz Cat5 cable, or you're in a really noisy commercial environment. You know, if you're in a really noisy, like high EMI, lots of electrical cable going around the commercial premises, then use a shielded cable. Please use a shielded cable. It just helps so much.
Super.
Rant over.
It's true though. Cabling is incredibly important.
Yeah,
You've got to get
it's the glue, isn't it? It's the glue. You know, you've got a TX and an RX. What's gluing them together? This cable. So the cable's important. Where you lay it's important. These things need to be thought about. It will save a lot of time and effort in the long run.
Yeah. So let's look at a brand new product which we've put in here because essentially it's a multi-format transmitter. It's a transmitter with various inputs on it, which could be very useful in a meeting space where obviously various connections might be brought into that space. So this is a brand new model for the range. It's an HD-based-T Lite product. So realistically, that would be up to about sort of 60 meters with a 1080p signal. About 40, isn't it, roughly, Kev? 35, 40 meters with 4K?
Yeah, depends. So 35 Cat5e, you can get to like 45 if you're using Cat6a or Cat7.
Perfect. So this is, as I say, a light transmitter with HDMI, USB-C, which of course we're seeing more and more demand for now, especially with modern day laptops. In fact, the one I'm sitting with on my lap now is a USB-C output. So USB-C, DisplayPort, and VGA. Let's just run through the main specs here. So as it says, the output will support essentially up to 10.2 gigabits per second, HD-based-T max. If you are putting in a signal above what HD-based-T can handle, this can automatically convert down to 1080p through the HD-based-T output.
There's a lot of our products that do this in one way or another now, because of the prevalence of 4K and because only some 4K signals are within the HD-based-T bandwidth. You find a lot of the recent and developing products from CYP all have some kind of automatic conversion. In this case, it's automatic conversion to drop it to 1080p, but in other products, it might do a Chroma subsampling conversion, 444 to 420, or it might even do a hertz rate. So you put in 4K 60, it drops it to 4K 30. The principle here is that when you get a signal that is beyond the bandwidth capabilities of HD-based-T, something happens automatically, and you still get a picture at the other end.
Exactly. Yeah, great point. If somebody walks into a meeting room space, they plug in something and you don't get a signal at the other end, we all know that hell breaks loose. So if the system is doing what you said, Kev, that is brilliant, just to make it better for everyone. So again, HDMI, DisplayPort, VGA, and the USB-C input. Auto switching across those, although I would imagine you can control that separately as well, can't you, Kev? Is there manual switching on this one? Yeah, I can see it on the front there.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Superb. All audio formats as well, all of the sort of most up-to-date audio formats are then covered by this, as you would expect from this sort of product. Do you want to quickly mention the signal events as well, the event automation, Kev?
Yes, so this has got a web GUI. You can go in and do some programming. Obviously, it's got Telnet and RS-232 commands on it as well. But it also has some of our simple automation functions that we put on some more simpler products. So this is the idea that in a meeting space or an environment, you can automate some very simple functionality. So this one's just got CEC, but sometimes you get CEC and RS-232, but this one's just CEC. And so you have event types like the physical unit turns on, you see an active source at the output, or there's no active source at the output. And then you can choose under these events what type of CEC command you send. So you can send, a power on command down the CEC bus to the TV or the projector, or you can send a power off command, or you can send a select input command. So this select input command is just selects the live input which you're pushing it to. This is quite a clever command because it actually couples together power on and selecting the right HDMI input that you're connected to. So it allows the upshot of this is that everything's in standby, your TV's in standby, you walk in to have the meeting, you plug in, you set delays up to how long it takes to do it, and the CEC command will fire out, turn on your TV, put it to the right channel, you have your meeting, you unplug, it waits a minute if that's how long you programmed it, to make sure nobody else is going to plug in and you on, and then the TV turns off. So it's a very just simple, useful automation that allows the space to be technician free.
Yeah, so maybe a small huddle space or a straightforward, a standard meeting room. Yeah, that would be a brilliant solution. We'll skip that part. You've also as well got power from that USB-C connection. So this will do PD 2.0, power delivery 2.0. So it can power or charge a device as well, connected to the USB-C port on the transmitter. Just show that there a bit clearer for you on the back of the unit. And this could be paired with our straightforward PUV 1210PL RX. So just a straightforward light receiver. So a really simple pairing, but as I say, with multiple inputs, the auto switching and those other functions that Kev mentioned there. Really straightforward solution.
So again, in general, this will go with any of the PUV 1200 series. But remember, this is a standard HD-based T, so you power the TX and the RX is remote powered. So if you wanted to, you could power both the TX and the RX and use something from the PUV 1600 range if you wanted a particular product. So you can mix and match these across ranges, but remember, you always get the lowest common denominator. So if you mix, for example, if you mix HD-based T Lite with HD-based T Full, essentially you get an HD-based T Lite system. But yeah, remember, you can mix and match. It's just about where you need to power it.
Super. Right, let's have a look at another solution now. Again, really straightforward, but this one is then based on HD-based T2 technology. So that gives you the signal error correction, which HD-based T2 offers, which can be a little bit more forgiving of maybe slightly worse cable infrastructure, and also then slightly better over long distance for that stability.
Yeah, HD-based T uses PAM16 modulation, which is different, bunging all the signals at different frequencies down some of the cable pairs. So obviously this is ripe for signal error when you, especially in noisy environments. Obviously they've handled it really well. An HD-based T is what normal one is very, very reliable, but they did do some improvements to measure these incoming signals on HD-based T2 to add an extra layer of error correction to it. So often if you're using HD-based T1 and you're getting minor dropouts and you figure out it's something across the cabling infrastructure, sometimes if you go to HD-based T2 technology, that'll all disappear. Can't guarantee it, but if you can't change the cabling, it's often worth trying.
Super. And another key thing to this one, Kev did mention USB data earlier, but these PUV 2010 models can send USB data over the CAT cable as well. So very useful for using maybe a PC with an interactive display or something like that. So we have found these models very popular again in places like education, where they're using interactive displays or interactive projectors. As well as that, these models do have an audio return pathway, which in this case is OAR, which is optical audio return. So you can see actually on the unit here, there's an optical connector there. So from the receiver in a pair of these, you can bring the audio back from the receiver end via that digital audio through to the transmitter end, or you can use ARC as well, which is an option.
I was going to say, yeah, you've got this. This one gives you a choice of whether you want to take a physical optical connection at the RX and send it backwards down the HD-Base-T channel to the TX, or you can actually, if you're connected to an ARC-enabled device, just use the ARC channel from the TV, which will obviously run back from the TV via the HDMI cable. We put both on them because we find in large systems, because the ARC is based on CEC, that sometimes you can have problems with it. So, you know, we put the optical on there as well as an option, and the RX just has a simple switch to say whether you're taking it from the optical or the ARC channel.
Fantastic. And these are HD-Base-T2, and they're full. They're classed as full 5-play, so they do support LAN serving as well, which again can be good for certain environments. And these sort of models are available either in that incredibly slim line. If you can get a gauge there of the size of the RJ45 connector, these are incredibly slim. Those little ear parts there are removable, so you can just put it onto a unit or you can mount it. And there are also wall plate versions of this available as well.
Perfect.
PUV 1600 series, we're now up to, I think it's about 12 or 13 different models in this series, and they're designed to be, as we show here, mix and match. They all feature reverse power. So this whole series, the power is coming from the receiver end back to the transmitter. You'll see why that's useful in a second, but remember that across this whole range, the power is going the other way round, receiver back to transmitter. They're designed with meeting rooms and huddle spaces in mind, again, which you'll see in a second. These have simple CEC or RS-232 commands on certain models, a bit like Kev explained a minute ago. There are wall plate versions available again, as we have with many. These are really popular for these meeting spaces, so we're seeing the range increase as we go. As I say, I think we're up to 12 or 13 different models now in the series. And they also have compatibility with some of our higher end presentation switches, which we'll see in a moment as well. So these are HD-Base-T 5-play. So again, they'll converge all the normal things you'd expect from HD-Base-T 5-play, the video, audio, Ethernet, power and control signals, and all through a cable up to 100 meters, cat cable. Let's start with a really simple solution here, which would be the tabletop design unit, the PUV 1630 TTX, which is seen at the bottom of your screen there, a tabletop transmitter. There's no need for separate power. As we mentioned, the power comes from the receiver end. So if this is mounted on your meeting room table, you've only got a single cat cable running to it. There's no need to run separate power. That's obviously a brilliant advantage to this 1600 series. There's auto switching between the inputs, which on this is 2 HDMI and a VGA input, but you do also have, again, a manual input selection, so you can select through manually if you need to. Again, there is LAN serving on these, so if either end of this is connected to your local area network, it will send that data to the other end. Usually that would be plugged into the receiver and then essentially sending a LAN to the transmitter. So if somebody walks into this meeting space and doesn't have access to your Wi-Fi, if you allow them to, they could plug into this LAN socket here and be on your network. Sending the CEC or RS-232 commands again. If you walk into this meeting space and you've set it up this way, somebody could plug in an HDMI cable and it would simply send out a command to your screen via the receiver to switch the screen on. As Kev said earlier, switch the screen on, change the input, just based on, is that hot plug detection, is it, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, for the auto switching, what happens is it'll detect the signal, set 5-volt signal, even on the VGA, it detects a small voltage signal, switch to that, and then if that's caused a event to trigger, like the output is now live where it wasn't before, and you've set that live output to send an RS-232 command that will come out of your receiver to your projector to turn it on, then that's what will happen. So again, it's the same system as the one we discussed before. This is the simple end of the control section, but it's very, very, very useful, very easy to program. But this one has CEC and RS-232. Remember, with these tabletop units, there's a couple of them now. They do come with like desk clamps for mounting them on the desk, so you can, if they're moved about regularly, then you might just leave them floating around, but you can actually clamp them onto desks as well with the supplied clamp that comes with it. And again, you can use a variety of different RXs with this system. Remember that a PUV 1600 TX needs a PUV 1600 RX, or it needs some kind of PoE injector, POH injector to make it work.
Super. And it is, as I say, literally that simple. I can't stress it enough. We run one of these in our AV Academy in the UK. You walk into the meeting room space and you simply plug into one of the inputs on the unit, and before you know it, the screen has switched on and you're ready for your meeting. When you unplug the HDMI cable, there's a delay set within the unit, and after, I think in our meeting room, it's a couple of minutes, isn't it, Kev? And
yeah, it might just be 90 seconds or something I set it to, yeah.
That's it. So by the time you've unplugged your laptop and left the room, that's it. That CEC command is sent out to the screen and the screen switches off. It's really that simple. In this example, we're using it with a slightly more advanced receiver, which is the PUV 1620A RX. The A is indicating that it's got a built-in stereo 20-watt amplifier. So again, in this simple meeting room example on screen here, you've actually then accounted for your audio because you've got a nice amplifier built into the receiver. You've then got a local HDMI input on that receiver as well, which could be used for a local signage player or something similar, just to show some marketing on that meeting room screen. And then you've got relay outputs, which can be used for controlling some basic third-party equipment, maybe like a projector lift, projector screen, or remote blinds or something like that. But again, simple relay outputs. Again, as Kev said, this can be used with any PUV 1600 series receiver, which includes the really straightforward 1610, which is just basically an HDMI output on the receiver, through to more advanced models like this, and more advanced models which we'll look at in a moment. Which segues us on to the PUV 1650s. Do you want to go through these a little bit, Kev?
Yeah, sure. So the 1650 is a TX and RX set. This is offers a more advanced control and elements of this system. So it's for more advanced systems, really. So the TX has the web GUI. The RX doesn't have a web GUI, but the RX has a collaboration page within the TX's web GUI. So you can use these independently if you want the functionality of the TX, the inputs, the triggers, the auto conversion, the event management, the system control, but you don't need the scaling and the relay functionality, for example, of the RX. You could just use it with another simpler PUV 1600 RX. But the TX does the standard auto conversion. So again, anything above HT-based bandwidth will be auto converted to something. It has a trigger input, so this is used with our CRTG1 trigger, and the triggers can be mapped to internal commands or external or macros, and I'll go through that in a second. So you've got four layers of automation sections. So you've got, well, five. Yeah, well, you've got the commands. So you can actually put a device in. So if you're using the same IP address lots of time for the same device, you can put the device in. But you've got commands where you actually put in your command. So this is the telnet of my projector, and here's my on command, save. Telnet projector, here's my off command, save. Here's my input command, save. So you've got 200 of these commands you can put in. So there you put in everything you want to do. And remember here, with this unit, you can actually capture IR commands and trigger IR commands, both from the TX and from the RX. So if you've got equipment, third-party equipment in the system that can only use IR, you can still use all the automation, all the event automation of the system. So capture them all, whether IR, Telnet, RS232, internal commands to switch it, whatever. You have the commands. And then you build up a macro. So you've got a total of 64 different macros available. Each macro can have 16 individual commands underneath it. So that we all know what a macro is, so it just can send multiple commands. So you could have a command that's stacked up with 16 or 12 different things that turns the room on. So you might have a relay that opens the blinds or brings the projector down, turn the screen on, turn this amp on, turn that, you know, and as I say, you can use Telnet, RS232, IR, anything you like. So then that's then in macros. So then with the trigger, you can trigger macros. So you can have the trigger, which is a tabletop unit. So you can have it sitting next to what we call the director. So that the head of the meeting room, and he could have triggers for, you could just have volume up and down, input selection, but you might have room on and off. You might have play and pause for a IR, for a media player or something. You can have whatever you like there. You can stack it up and there can be macros, so there can be multiple things. But then actually you go one step further beyond that and you can create events. So events are automation of when and how a macro is triggered. So you could just have a macro that's triggered by the control pad, by the keypad, by the trigger. So it's triggered when I hit button 1 on my trigger. Or it might be triggered when I get a live input. Or it might be triggered by a drop in something or a rise in something. There's loads of options to play around with here. And yet, if you've not used it before, it can be a little bit complicated to start with. But like any system, once you've spent half an hour playing with it, it becomes quite intuitive. So you've got these different layers. So this is a much more advanced control system. It gives you much more flexibility and much more advanced automation that you can do. So not only control of the unit, but control of third-party equipment in virtually any way that we recognize as a control format. So that's all done from the TX's web GUI. Do you want to move on to the RX?
No problem. There we go.
The RX has the scaler on board. So again, you can set it. So if you've got a WUXGA projector and you want everything once it hits the scaler to be WUXGA, then just set it to that. It's also got a local input. So if you want some kind of digital signage in and out, you can do that. And as you can see there, you've got a local balanced audio output. Obviously, you can use it unbalanced if you wire it that way, just for audio reinforcement. And remember, you've got volume controls that you can control from that as well. So you can make volume controls. And remember that you can use the commands and the macros and then program third-party control systems to send in a command to this system and just say, hey, trigger macro 1. So it's not just internal. Within the Telnet and RS232 commands, you've got commands to trigger any of the 64 macros. So you can still integrate it with third-party control systems as well. We could go on about that one, but we can go on too long. It's a really nice system. As I say, I've got lots of customers that have used it and keep coming back to use it again and again.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a really comprehensive, as you say, Kev, but as you've worked out, you've got a lot of flexibility with it once you've learnt the system. Yeah, it's great. Right, let's move on a bit. That's just a schematic of everything you can do with it, and you really can see there lots of inputs, local HDMI output on the transmitter for local monitoring. As Kev said, local HDMI input on the receiver. You've got all of your video outputs, obviously your IP control, your relays, the separate audio. So again, you can build a really nice system with that. And there are, as with many, there are some wall plate versions available of these models as well. Let's have a look at some presentation switches. Obviously, these can be the heart of meeting rooms and also other environments. And of course, the key thing really to presentation switches is their multi-format inputs, and obviously the scaler allowing anything in to be sent out to the local screen or the display. Going back to some tried and tested models that we've had for a while now. These are, I wouldn't say legacy as such, but they've been with us for a while, but they still do a really good job and still popular. You've got models like the EL5400 HBT, and you can see their multi-format inputs including HDMI, DisplayPort, VGA, microphone, but then also HDMI and HD-Base-T Lite output. So again, just really popular for small environments where you need that multi-format input, simple switching, and the ability to go out to a local display and over HD-Base-T. You then got a bigger brother to that. There are more in this range. We're just highlighting a few examples. But then the 5500 HBT, which as you can see there, is just a much larger array of inputs and outputs. So more HDMI inputs, HD-Base-T inputs. So you could come from an external transmitter into this presentation switcher. There's two HD-Base-T inputs, and then a VGA input as well, which we've kept on. You've got separate audio inputs as well. You've then got the HDMI outputs and the HD-Base-T output. So again, bigger on every scale, really. This then does support LAN serving as well.
What's quite funky with that one is that the digital inputs, so the 4 HDMI and the 2 HD-Base-T, if you hover over this audio bypass HDMI section down, so this is like an independent output. So whilst all of the outputs you see to the left are all mirrored, this is the bypass one is like a little preview. So it can only do it with the digital inputs because there's no the DAC, the video DAC is on the output, not on this bit. But you can preview, so that'll actually give you like a matrixed output, like a second output that is totally independent, but only for the digital input. So it's quite nice if you need to, if you are just using those and you want to create a little matrix system with it, you can kind of jam it in there.
Fantastic. Yeah, always nice to have those extra bits in there. That's super. Moving on a bit more, you've then got, these are brand new to the range actually as well. So the model on the left there, I'll let Kev go into these, but can be used on its own or paired with the 2600 RX.
Yeah, so again, this is a slightly more complicated system. So these again are designed to go together, but they can mix and match with some other HD-Base-T 2 compatible products. But essentially here you've got a fully functional matrix, 4x2 matrix in the EL2600V, coupled with a presentation switcher, coupled with de-embedded audio and microphone input and USB circuitry across the HD-Base-T link. So again, you have automatic conversion of signals. You have a microphone input with a full DSP engine for mixing the microphone into background noise. You have a microphone volume control on the front if you need to adjust it. And this acts as a 4x2 matrix. So both the HDMI and the HD-Base-T output are independent. So again, you have quite a nice level of control with your with your Telnet RS232 and Web GUI control. But also again, you have this local trigger input. So again, the trigger input can trigger on this one system functions. So volume up and downs, input switching, USB host swapping, swapping the ends there. And so it's quite a functional little unit. You've got RS232 on the front for controlling the unit, and you've got RS232 on the back for pushing the RS232 signal down the HD-Base-T link to the receiver. So in general, these are used with the PUV 1600 RX receiver, but it is possible to use them with like a PUV 2010 receiver as well, if you just want something a little bit more simple. So again, this ends up being like a 2x2 matrix on its own as well. So you've got an HDMI input and an HD-Base-T input and 2 outputs, and they can be independently selected. So again, if you want to using it for previewing, or you want to use it to display one thing on one screen and another thing on a further screen, you can. And then you can see you've got the USB host on that unit as well. So on the front, you've got 3 USB connections. On the rear, you've got USB hosts. So the USB can run either way. You can have your computer on either side of this. So it's quite useful. You could have your computer at the remote end, and then you could be plugging into the TX like a webcam. So you can have a remote webcam session with your computer miles away. So obviously, most of the time, computer, oh, it's a laptop. It's got a camera on it. Hello. But if you're remote, you might have to plug in a webcam. So if your computer's at the TX end or at the RX end, and you're at the other end for whatever reason, you can use it like that as well. So it's got really quite a lot of host of functionality. As I say, multiple TX and RX. You can switch that live between what unit is the USB host and which one isn't. But you will see that the signal drop out for a second and come back. I'm afraid this is the only way we can do it. We've got to change the entire direction of the host bus. So we can only do it by kind of turning it off and on again, almost. Not quite that bad, but almost. So you'll see a drop. So again, this is HDBase T2 with all the flexibility and advantages with that. And again, the PUV 2600RX can provide power for the complete EL 2600V transmitter. You can also power that transmitter locally if you want to use it with something else. So there's many options there with this, and it's a very good little unit.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you, Kev. Moving on, we've then got another unit with USB-C. So it's the second unit in our range at the moment with the USB-C input. And this is the flagship EL8500VA. So another model with A in the name, which implies it's got a built-in amplifier. So you can see along the front there, this was designed with easy access to the inputs and physical controls based on feedback from installers and some of our distribution partners. So you can see along the front there, all of the 9 inputs have direct input selection buttons. So if somebody wants to go into this meeting space and select an input, you don't have to press a button to cycle through all the inputs. You can literally press the button you need, or you can use this with our trigger pad, the CRTG1 trigger that we've mentioned a few times, which physically connects into the back of the unit and then will allow you access to 8 of the 9 inputs. On the right-hand side there, you can see the volume control, which can either be controlling the volume of the inbuilt amplifier, you can switch it to control the line output volume, or you can actually control devices like a local screen, a connected screen. And that's all done by...
It's actually just ramping the HDMI audio rather than controlling the screen. It's turning it down through its HDMI and HDBase T-links.
Perfect, superb.
Which is quite clever.
That's good. That's good.
Can't do that normally. Can't do that normally.
And that is indicated live on the front of the unit there from those LEDs. And simply click the volume control in, just press it in to mute the audio. So again, really simply laid out. This unit will support 4K, which is great. So it is 4K in, 4K out on the HDMI, and then again through HDBase T, it will do the relevant conversion that's required. As I mentioned, it has that stereo 20-watt amplifier. Let's look at the back of the unit and you'll see there, you've got the USB-C input again, very popular these days, again, as I said, with things like laptops. You've got 2 HDBase T inputs. So again, you can come into this unit from an external transmitter. We'll look at that on the next slide as well. HDMI, VGA, and then similar with audio outputs. It's got the microphone input, the trigger input again on the back, which we'll see on the next slide as well. Some relay control, IR in and out as well. And the HDMI and HDBase T outputs on this unit are mirrored, so they will send out the same signal. As Kev mentioned earlier, this one then supports automatic down conversion. So that will be Chroma subsampling, Kev, on this one by the looks of it.
Oh, look at you.
Super. I just like saying subsampling. And again, that supports POH. We'll look at that on the next slide, but this unit can power, as we move on to the next slide here, it can power 2 of our PUV 1600 series transmitters, as we're showing here on the bottom left-hand side. It can simultaneously power any of our PUV receivers. In fairness, this receiver here is actually, this would power itself because it's 1600 series, but this could work with a standard PUV receiver. And again, it can power all 3 of those at the same time. So very flexible in terms of how you can use the system. Again, that is a visual. You can now see what the CRTG1 trigger pad looks like. That just mounts into a tabletop, for example. And again, those buttons, you push them and the little light, they will give an indicator light of which button is currently active. Does that stay on, Kev, to show you which one's on?
Yeah, it depends how you program, but yes, most of the time, yes. And it'll flash on when you hit it. So if you're using like mute or something or volume up, you can see it's working.
Perfect. Good stuff. Again, as we mentioned, the EL8500VA has its built-in amplifier, so that can go straight out to a pair of speakers. And we're showing actually here, if you pair that with this sort of receiver here, the one we looked at earlier, you can actually then have another audio zone with audio reinforcement. So again, you can build these systems up pick and choose the transmitters, pick and choose the receivers to build a more custom system for what the application requires.
Exactly.
And then, as you mentioned, local HDMI output and the HD-base-T output. And I'll skip that because that's the same receiver we've looked at already.
Just one thing to mention here, so you can see there you've got some RS-232 Phoenix connectors on the back. So one of those, I can't remember whether it's top or the bottom off the top of my head, is for the unit itself. The second one is for passing the RS-232 across the HD-base-T link. So you can instantly see here you've got 3 HD-base-T connections here, 2 inputs and 1 output. You have to tell the system, and you can do this via Telnet or the web GUI, where you're passing the RS-232, because it can only go to one of those connections at a time. There's only one pathway through HD-base-T, so you can only go to one. So you have to say, I'm going to use input cap HD-base-T1, or I'm going to use HD-base-T output, just so you realize how that works. There's a cut down version of this coming out soon as well. Oh, look at you.
Look at that.
I probably do have a picture of it somewhere. Yeah, we might do. We might do. It might have been done actually recently, that picture, Dan, just for reference.
Fantastic.
So the EL8500VA, so this is just simply a cut down version. Everything is the same. The same scaling, the same housing, the same control, the same volume controls, everything is the same, apart from we have removed the 2 HD-base-T inputs and added a 1 HDMI and 1 DisplayPort input. The idea here is if you don't need those remote sources with the HD-base-T link, you've got an option that is more budget sensitive.
It is, yeah. It's very attractively priced with the reduction of the HD-base-T, so it would offer, as you say, a really good option for those that just don't need that.
The chips are still reasonably expensive, so it does bring the price down. Yeah, and it's just giving you options. That is due. It's on order. I think it's kind of mid to late August. It comes in stock.
Fantastic. Yeah, just another one to add to the range. So yeah, looking forward to that. Right, let's move on a little bit. You can then use as well. So that was obviously HD-base-T presentation switches, but AV over IP can also work, especially for larger scale meeting rooms. Let's have a look at an example as well. So again, obviously, as everyone probably knows, AV over IP can still offer you your video, audio, power over Ethernet control. You then get the USB functionality as well with our AV over IP system, and that would all work over a 1 gig network switch. And from our range, that would be the CS7 controller, the IP7000 transmitter, TX, the IP7000 receiver, which is the RX, and a 1 gig network switch. This uses our custom drag and drop interface. This is what we call the monitor and control page. So whoever was using this system could do simple control here, just dragging a transmitter to a receiver. So it's really simple to operate. But the nicest thing, if you wanted to run a series of meeting rooms, you want to run more than one meeting room space, but using one overall AV system, that's where this might come into play. So you'll see on screen here, we've got an example of 5 different zones. Let's imagine these are all separate meeting rooms. But all of your hardware, you're running one controller from CYP, one network switch, a whole series of transmitters, and then you've got your 5 receivers, one in each zone. With the AV over IP system, you can now have separate logins for individual users. And in this case, you could just have one login per meeting room. So as an example here, zone 1, if it's logged in as zone 1, password zone 1, this can have been configured by the administrator to give them access in that meeting room to a selection of transmitters. We've just given this an example of transmitter 1 and transmitter 3, and they've got access to the receiver 1, which is the local receiver to their room. Now, obviously, this is all part of a bigger AV over IP system, but whoever walks into this meeting room space, they only see the selected transmitters and the selected receiver they're given access to. And that could be the same across all rooms. It's like you're
breaking down one AV over IP system into separate sections for each room and allowing through the CS7's controller and user functionality allowing each room to pretty much feel like it's a separate install, but actually it's one big installation using one controller on one network switch. It's quite a cool function.
It's very cool. The nice thing with that, we've said before, you can see in this example, there's supposed to be dividers between the rooms. If this room was suddenly opened up as one massive conference center, you could have a command that says, right, send all of the TXs to every single RX. You could suddenly incorporate it into one large meeting space, or you just have it separate.
Exactly. You just create another zone. So if you've got 5 logins there of zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, zone 5, there's nothing to stop you making a 6th zone login, which was zone all, and that would have all the TXs and all the RXs in the system, and you could monitor the whole system. And obviously, if you log in as an administrator using the administrator login, then you'll always see all of the system. So what basically happens as soon as you turn users on, you need to log in to the CS7. So whether at that point you're using Zone 1 login or administrator login will determine what TXs and RXs and what functionality you're allowed to see.
Exactly right. And simple ways to control that, as Kev says, when you log in as, for example, Zone 1, the monitor and control page shown here on this little PoE Android device would only show you the receivers and transmitters that you've been allowed to see. So it's not as if you're going to see, oh, there's 10 receivers, why can't I access them? You'll only see the receivers and transmitters that you've been given access to. So exactly as Kev said, if you walk into meeting room 1, you see this touchscreen display there, and you think, oh, okay, that's my screen. Which transmitter do I put on there? Simple. Really, really simple.
And those are quite simple to set up. I mean, you want a PoE one because you just want to run power into it from the same network. Ideally, it doesn't have to be. And then you just use the Android system to, you download a windowless browser. You ask the Android system to boot the Windows on boot up. Just boot up the windowless browser. You give a default IP address, which is the CS7 controller, as the default. Not only does it boot up, but it brings up the IPCS7 web browser, and then also most of them you can actually do a login as well. So you can tell it, look, save this username and password and log in. So you literally walk in and it's already done. And obviously, and then you've just got control, as Dan says, of your particular bits in your particular zone. It's a really, really, really good system. I mean, we're still educating people on this because it's only been a year or so, but we've seen quite a few funky installations using this methodology already.
Yeah, it really is good. We had it running at ISE, didn't we, as well? And it really is nice. It's really, really easy to use. If you wanted to as well, just obviously touching on AV over IP and its benefits, you could then use that. Some meeting room spaces, of course, might have a video wall. So again, you can integrate that using simple video wall configuration through that same AV over IP system. Just set a selection of receivers to work with a selection of screens, of course, and then the video wall would show on the right-hand side here as a video wall, and then you can drag any content onto that video wall. And again, that can all be integrated in, just all being run by that one single controller.
Great.
Oh, there we go, drag and drop. Forgot about that. Quickly touching on this is a little 4 input 2 zone output matrix, which was originally designed with residential in mind, to be honest. But we're finding this popular as a small meeting room space, meeting room presentation switch. So again, as I mentioned, it's 4 HDMI inputs, a local HDMI output with a mirrored HD-based-T output. So of course, these will output the same signal, and then a totally independent second zone through HD-based-T. The nice thing with this, it's a small compact unit. It has a built-in stereo amplifier again, as we mentioned on the big 8500 model. It has a control app, which is free to download, and that can control the matrix, but it can also control some third-party devices as well via IR learning. And this unit also supports 4K HDR AVLC through our AVLC compression technology. So again, it will take in high-quality signals and distribute those simply. So that again could be nice for a small meeting room solution.
Great.
Just touching as well, because apologies, we are running a bit close to our hour, but we then have some streaming products as well, which realistically could be paired with any of these meeting room solutions. So as we say, they're one-touch streaming, one-touch recording, and quite a few streaming options. So the new IP Extreme R, essentially HDMI in and out, which is 4K, 18 gigabits per second in and out. And then this unit will stream up to 1080p to chosen areas. You can record your video to the local SD card, USB storage, or to a NAS drive. And as indicated there, once you've actually set that up, you can just physically press the start recording button or stop recording on the front of the unit. So as we say, one-touch recording for your presentation. You can stream to popular platforms at the touch of a button. Again, if you're using a service like Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube, as we show there, if you've set this up in the web GUI with your streaming key, for example, if I did it and I pressed the record or stream button on the unit, it would go straight to my YouTube channel. So you can set that up to just stream directly from here. Or you've also then got, Kev, do you want to quickly just go through the real-time streaming protocol?
Yeah, so real-time streaming protocol is the ability to stream out just directly. You don't need stream keys, you don't need anything. What you need is a bespoke URL IP address, essentially, that the IP Extreme R gives you in various windows in its web GUI. Once you've set it, it will maintain the same thing. And then you use media players, like any media player that is essentially real-time streaming protocol compatible, VLC, for example. And then you just, you go into file, you go live stream, it'll bring up a dialog box, you copy and paste the URL in it, and you hit play, and there's your live stream. So it's another third way of getting the stream to people that maybe aren't comfortable with Twitch or face thingy majiggy stuff. Not big on social media, sorry. And you can access it through any media player that is real-time streaming protocol compatible.
Fantastic. And as we displayed on there, the unit will automatically generate 4 different video streams. So as you see there, the different resolutions: 1080p 60, 1080p 30, VGA 30, and then QVGA 30. So your device that you're viewing the stream on will effectively pick the most relevant one to it. Yeah. So a mobile phone will pick a low res.
It's automatic. The person viewing it doesn't know what's happening there. If it's on a TV, it will pick the highest quality one. If it's on a small mobile, it will automatically know the resolution of the screen, and it will pick the relevant thing. Normally, the QVGA for mobiles, the VGA for tablets, and the 720 or 1080p for a bigger TV or PC.
Type and then also this that you've been working on, Kev, great little system.
Yeah, this is like a little virtual presenter. So this type of presenting is great and fine, but for certain educational purposes, you might want to integrate yourself into the actual presentation. So we want to be standing in the presentation, giving the presentation. This uses a couple of products. It's the EL21 PIP and the IP Extreme R. We're just doing a firmware update to the EL21 PIP to manage HDCP properly, so we don't get HDCP on sources when we're going to the IP Extreme R. But essentially, that's coming in literally a couple of days. So the camera goes into HDMI 1 of the PIP. The presentation source goes into HDMI 2. You then set up the PIP with Chroma Keying, and you flip the camera horizontally so that when I press right, I'll go right, not left, because the camera's pointing at you, you see. Otherwise, you're pointing in the wrong direction, right? Okay, so that can be done on the PIP as well. You then have a plain background, whether it's white, blue. I've even tried it with black, actually, and it was surprisingly effective. And then essentially what happens is that everything will bleed through, and you'll see me, but everything with the plain color background, your presentation will come through. I'm sure some of you know what Chroma Keying are. It's basically an early green screening that is still very, very effective and a lot more cost effective than expensive green screening. And this allows you to interact with the presentation because you're literally in the presentation. Now, normally then you have put your preview monitor, which is taken from the IP Extreme R's output, and put that behind the camera, so you're looking at the camera and you're looking at yourself with the presentation all around you. So this is quite a nice system. We've been talking to schools and universities over the last few months during this pandemic, and this is something that's come out of it that a lot of them are very interested in doing. So yeah, this is a really nice little system, and then you just stream out, whether you're streaming and recording, all the other things with the IP Extreme are just exactly the same.
Fantastic. And just thinking, actually, Kev, we had a question yesterday when we spoke about this to another customer, and that was that you can record and stream at the same time.
Yes.
It's not restricted. Yeah. You can record your presentation, simultaneously stream your presentation. Again, once you've set it up, it is simple. And again, these access here without having to run a PC live. There's no PC running at this point. It's just the hardware. Exactly.
This is totally standalone. You do not need a PC. You do not need any additional streaming software. You do not need anything. The IP Extreme R, via its web GUI, you can do everything. You can set it up so that all you're doing is pressing the buttons on the front.
Yeah. Or the supply remote as well. You can do it remotely if you're doing your own presentation. Stand there with the remote, point it at the unit. Again, so simple.
And there is sort of LED flashing that tells you whether that it's recording. I think the LED by the power flashes red when you're recording, and the one by the video selector flashes red or purple or something when you're streaming. There's a visual.
Yeah, you know it's working, basically.
That it's working.
Yeah, fantastic. Just quick, apologies, Kevin and I always talk too much, but hopefully it's useful. We're only a couple of minutes over and we're right near the end now. We'll just touch on this one. This is another capture device. So it's basically HDMI input, and then we'll work with your PC to then stream your content via a service like OBS, Open Broadcaster Software. So this one doesn't stream by itself. It would work with your laptop or your desktop.
So this needs the PC, and it needs a streaming software. So whether that's the new Twitch bit of software that's a streamer, or Open Broadcast software, which is a standard piece of video software in the industry. But you need with this one, it's the exact opposite. You need the software on a PC, because that's how it's getting out. All this is doing is the HDMI converted into packets to be sent to your computer to be streamed out.
Perfect.
Obviously, it's less costly, it's cheaper as well because of that, because it's only got that bit of the circuitry in it.
Perfect. And as you can see, they're audio input, and it can power through the USB 3 connection. So again, if you wanted to use this almost as a mobile, you could take it with you and just power it from your device. Yeah,
it's very small as well, so it's a great unit to be using when you're out and about, and you'll be going. I don't know, some of these vloggers take stuff everywhere, don't they?
Probably. There we go. So that's a great new unit to the range. And again, meeting rooms sometimes would have a video wall configuration. So we spoke about one earlier with AV over IP, but we are just launching as well this brand new 4K supporting video wall controller. So it is a 1 input, 4 output. So you can instantly create a 2x2 video wall with this unit, or you can use it with additional units of this to create up to 8x8, Kev?
Yep.
Perfect. So you can grow this into a bigger video wall, but again, this will support 4K 60 input and output. And again, that will work on its own as a 2x2 video wall, or just use it with additional units to grow into a larger video wall system.
Cool.
There you go. Sorry, there's the example. And that is the end of all the main units. I will just touch on, we do have as well, anybody that's out on site, obviously do feel free to contact us about our test equipment, using as pattern generators, signal analyzers, or this portable unit here. You can use it for testing your cables, make sure they can pass 4K. You then got the bigger brother, which is the XA4. If you're doing more advanced testing, again, you want to look at input coming in or test signals going out. And again, these are available with that lovely flight case that you see there, and above Kev's head on the left-hand side, over Kev's left shoulder.
Oh yeah, there's my box.
Exactly, that's it. It's up there, safe and sound, of course.
Yeah,
If you're in a region that has slightly bad power, we do actually have as well the surge protector for putting in
Every,
line.
every
Well done, Kev.
technician should have a set.
There you go. Yeah, they are lovely. Gives you an idea of scale as well there. They're so easy to put in the carry case, take out on site, and do your testing to make sure that system is working as intended.
Seriously, this is only a few £100. This battery powered analyzer, pattern generator, and HDMI cable tester. There's no excuse in the world for an integrator not to have some of these, or at least one of these, in their van. There really isn't. They will pay you back time and time again in saving you time and money on a job.
And segueing there to what's on screen, you could test our CYP premium certified cables with those as well.
Yeah,
so we've got I'm sure they'd pass fine. But yeah, these are 4K cables. So we do premium certified from 0.5 meter up to 7 meters. We've then got the AOC cables we spoke about earlier in 10 meter or 20 meter. Again, look at how beautiful they are. I know it's a cable, but they are stunning. And then you've also got the ultra slim cables. Again, you can see from the scale there, incredibly tiny HDMI head. So again, if you're trying to put those into installations, those do currently go up to 3 meter, although eventually those will be up to 1.8 meters. Any other information, obviously we've got all of our details on the CYP.com, CYPEurope.com website, and we also have our brilliant system solutions guide available to download from the website, or contact us afterwards and we can send you a hard copy. And from Kev and I, apologies for being 8 minutes over. I hope that's been useful to everyone and given you a bit of an idea of how just a selection of our products can be used in meeting room solutions. There's a whole wide range of products as well, which could also be integrated in. But I hope that gives you a good idea.
Yep, thanks everyone. We had a couple of questions, but they were privately put to me and I have answered them. So Excellent. We're all good.
Wonderful.
So, yep, Dan and I, thanks very much for joining you. Watch out for some further CYP webinars coming up in the next weeks and months. We're doing about one a week at the moment. This may slow down as we move slightly more out of lockdown throughout Europe. But if you need anything from us, just email us, pick up the phone. We're always here to help. And if you need anything bespoke from us, or you'd like some more information on this or any other webinars, just let us know.
Exactly right. Yep. Thank you very much for your time, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll speak to you all next time.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.